Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good evening, or whenever it is that you're watching this little event here. So this is my first attempt at this, so we're going to try to go through this process. What I'm going to share with you today are expectations that I think superintendents feel very important as you are going into that administrative role. So as I'm scrolling through here and trying to get the right screens up, one of the things that I would recommend to you is to read the book From Good to Great. I think it has a lot of good information in it. It's pretty focused on what's important. Um, and these are the 10 factors that are on the screen right now that highly effective principals possess. And so you can see they cover a wide variety of areas. I guess the one area that I would focus on this slide is the second one, the educator, where it talks about a depth of knowledge in curriculum instruction and learning. As we've talked about previously in class, we all know that that role of the building principal has changed over the last several years. Before we needed managers, people that could build a schedule, people that could deal with discipline, people that could order furniture. The expectation now is that you know and understand the curriculum, and so therefore that role becomes much more critical, and your understanding is, I guess what I would say is, you don't have to necessarily know the content, but you have to know what good teaching and learning looks like, and so I would encourage you to continue to pursue in those areas. This slide here is taken from a survey that was done with area superintendents, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago by Brenda Dietrich, who's the superintendent at Auburn-Washburn. And she was the state superintendent of the year, and she went on to this national competition. And so she sent a survey out in advance of asking what, from our perspective as superintendents, what were the most important characteristics. And as you can see here, number one is a good communicator. And again, we've talked about that a lot in class, but we've really talked about the importance of making sure that you can communicate well, not only in writing, but verbally, that your body actions portray that. And so again, I think that's important for you to know that speaking, writing, and listening, genuine listening, was listed number one. And again, I think as we've talked about that in class, we really need to focus in on that. If you can't do some of those well, then you need to practice those. Just like I'm practicing doing this online activity right now with you seeing my face. And if I turn this, and I'm going to briefly, you need to see my assistant.
How's everybody doing? Have a great day.
Okay, I told you Mr. Corby was going to help me, and he is. So we sure appreciate his help in that matter. Scrolling on, the second area was excellent people skills, and 49 of the superintendents responded that this was a critical skill for principals to be successful. And number one on this area here is able to build relationships. And I believe that we've spent plenty of time talking about that in class over the last 4 or 5 weeks. And so again, I think superintendents realize the importance of their building principles, building relationships with their staff, with their students, and with their parents. As you can see, some of the others on there cover a variety of things, but was also mentioned towards the bottom about celebrate success and accomplishments. And again, I think we need to pay close attention to looking for every opportunity we can to have meaningful celebrations. Just to have one doesn't serve a whole lot of purpose, but setting goals and then having celebrations or recognition of progress made on those as you're going along, I think will lend itself to helping build that rapport and relationships that you want with people. It also goes on to talk about some other areas. The very last one on there, very visible in the school and community. And again, I know from the role of the building principal, they are extremely busy, but you have to find time to be out in your building during the day, and you have to find time to be out in your community during the day and in the evening and on weekends. So there's lots of ways to do this, but I guess one of the easiest ways is at the very start of the day is to be out when the kids are coming in. Before that, when teachers are in their rooms, walking through the hallways, talking to them, great opportunity at that point to build those relationships with your teachers, finding out what's going on in their lives, again, getting to know them as a person. The community part, again, I think is important. attending kid events, sitting and interacting with parents. It's one thing to go to an event and stand off to the side and not interact. It's another thing to sit amongst them. And so that may be a challenge, but it's very important to do. The third area that area superintendents in the state identified was integrity and honesty. Code of ethics, trustworthiness, say what he means and means what he says. And again, I think that's pretty critical to the process. The other thing that I've noted at the bottom of here is being a team player. I think it's completely acceptable to disagree behind closed doors with your colleagues, with the superintendent, with whoever else you're interacting with. But once a decision's made, when you go back out into and interact with the public and your staff and students, whatever was decided there needs to be what you're supporting. If that can't be what you support, and that happens too often, then I think it's time probably for you to look for a different place to be. The one thing that probably irritates me more than anything else is when we have a meeting, we have an understanding, not everybody agrees, but we have to finally come to some decision making, and I have to make a decision. And then when I get back out and hear as I'm going through buildings that, well, we heard that it was your decision and wasn't others weren't involved or others don't support it. Whether that's true or not true, that doesn't need to be discussed, and it tends to create for me not being happy with them, to be real truthful with you. Mr. Corby thought that last comment was rather funny.
I absolutely did.
Item 4 are assorted character traits and work habits. And again, lots of the things that we've talked about throughout the things, throughout class and stuff. But it talks about being innovative and progressive. And I would hope that when you become a building principal that you're willing to take chances. If we continue to do the same things that we've always done, we're pretty much going to get the same results. And I think based on looking at scores across the nation and where we fit in, we have room for growth, a lot of room for growth in particular areas. And so I think it's very important that you look at things, keep up to date on things, read about things, try things. I think talking to your superintendent or your supervisor ahead of time so that they have some knowledge about what you're doing so they can stay informed and you can tell them whether it's going well or bad. And I have lots of administrators that do that, and sometimes things don't work, and that's okay as long as they realize they don't work, and then they can look for some other way to do that. The other thing that I think on here that is very difficult for beginning administrators being self-confident. Not arrogant, but self-confident. You have to believe in what you're doing. What you're doing is the right thing. And again, as you referred back up to some of those slides earlier about that integrity and honesty and belief system, if you follow those beliefs, I think you'll have great success. Sorted characters still continued on there. One of the things that I think is important also is the 24-hour rule. And I would probably say it's less than 24 hours before responding. But sometimes you might get a nasty email. There may be a parent that's extremely upset that's called on the phone. It's important to get back to them. Even if you don't have a great amount of time, if you get an email, you can respond back to the email. I have lots of things going on today, but I plan to try to call you tomorrow between 8 and 10 or whatever the case may be. Or please send me back some notice about what time I could call. If it's a phone call, it's my expectation that people return those phone calls the day of. I think it's okay to give people some time after they've called and been a little bit angry, but I think people's anger builds up the longer they don't hear from you. So again, even if you don't have a great amount of time, you call back, I got your phone call, I need to find out and investigate the information that you shared with me, and again, I will get back with you as soon as I can. And although we talked about this as being probably the most critical thing that there is to do, it ranks number 5 on the list. And so I don't know that people downplay this issue or if this is something that is really the 5th most important thing. But in my mind, this probably number 5 ties into the first 4 that are listed above and works through that. Again, on here, knowledge of effective teaching. Disaggregating data, using research to support best practices, is a change agent, uses technology. So all of those components again, that we've talked about in class are probably one of the most critical pieces. And then that ties back into those other items identified above. But I found it quite interesting that we always talk about our building principals being the instructional leader and how important that is, but it's number 5 on the list of superintendents. Goes on here again talking about hires quality staff, no good old boy approach. So again, as we spent time in the last class about going over questions and asking questions and the type of responses, that's probably going to be one of the most critical things that you ever do as the staff members that you hire. Number 6 is courage. Again, a variety of areas underneath there. I guess the one that jumps at me is one about speaking the truth, but also to stand on your convictions. I think you have to have a set of beliefs, and as a building administrator, if you have those beliefs, I think your staff will learn quickly to understand that that's where you are on different issues. And again, if the district has a different set of beliefs, convictions, and they don't mesh with yours, I would encourage you to look in a different location or a different way. Number 7 has a vision. Again, it's not about today. It's about what you want things to look like 3 years from now, and then working on that to get there, or 5 years down the road. So you want to improve your student achievement. So how are you going to do that? What's your roadmap that you're going to follow? And then again, as we talked about earlier, having benchmarks along the way to celebrate those successes that you have, taking some chances. But again, and this one also talks about seeing the big picture. So it's more than about today or tomorrow. It's about where you want those kids, what do you want those kids to look like when they graduate from high school, and what can you do to help them prepare for that, no matter what level you're at. Number 8 is passion. I can honestly say that there's never been a day that I've gone to work that I didn't enjoy going to work. Even if I knew there was going to be lots of challenges, different things going on, but it's really important, especially with the number of hours that you're going to have to put in, that you have to love your job. And if you don't love it, then you need to find something else back to teaching, if that's your love, or some other vocation that would allow you to really enjoy what it is that you do. As you noticed on here, customer service, I think, is part of that passion, is that we need to do whatever we can to help people be successful, whether that's your students, your staff, communicating with parents, making things better for everyone. Number 9 focuses on leadership styles, and again, we've talked about that, and there's lots of ways to lead, and my expectation as a building administrator is that our principals use a variety of leadership styles based on the circumstances and what's going on at the time. So again, on this one here, it talks about a servant leader motivates by being a service to others. People notice that. People notice if you're picking up the trash, if you're helping the custodian, if you're helping the cooks in the lunchroom, if you're in the classroom and you help a teacher with a lesson. People notice that and appreciate that, and will buy in more to becoming servant leaders as well. Number 10 talks about role models. I think it's important here that, and again, I put in the rigor, relevance, and a relationship piece, because again, I think those are 3 key components, no matter what system you're following, whether it's Daggett or another top educator. I do believe that those 3 components have to be on your mind on a daily basis as you're planning for what's going to happen now and in the future. And then, as you can see here, this chart shows a comparison of the 10 traits and how the book, Good to Great, lines up with what area superintendent said. And although there's not a perfect alignment, I think as you look across there, number 1, that communication piece is probably one of the most critical things from a building leader that's expected by everybody. And so all things are important. And again, we talk about a variety of things, but that piece and ability to communicate with others is critical to success. A few other things that I want to share with you briefly is best practice of award-winning secondary school principals, but I think this can apply to everybody. Work towards shared goals. And again, we've talked about getting buy-in from people and creating that vision so that everybody knows where we're going and we all know what the purpose is. If you walk through your building today, would everybody in your building be able to say to the person that asked the question, what are your goals for your building? If they can't, there's work that needs to be done. And not that that's a terrible thing, but again, I think that needs to be a focus about where it is that you're going. Um, but again, promoting student learning again is listed on there. Continuing on with best practices, that visibility piece, and we talked about that earlier. And I guess the one on here that really kind of jumps out at me, a couple of them. One, do not accept failure. Um, if something is not successful, then figure out a way to make it successful. Change the strategy, tweak it, do whatever you need to do. But it's really important for everyone to know that failure is not an option. And although that's taken right out of the book, I think it's pretty important for us to keep that in mind. And then the last one on there, I think we don't say it often enough, but I would hope that you would appreciate if your administrator came by and told you, thank you for the job that you do. Thank you for helping the kids before or after school. Thank you for taking the kids on a field trip. Whatever the case may be, people like to hear and receive good support, and saying thank you is a pretty easy thing to do, but say it with meaning. This slide here, I think just kind of sums up some of the things we've been talking about. You cannot become what you need to be by remaining what you are. And again, I think that's having that long range focus and trying to make yourself better every day. I'm trying today of making myself a little bit more flexible and trying this model here with the help of Mr. Corby. So I don't know how I've done, but hopefully it's been something that you have been able to follow along and see. And I keep moving that screen because I wasn't sure if there was another one, but there's not. So that's my spiel. I hope this has been beneficial to you. I would like to give Mr. Corby an opportunity to share any closing thoughts that he would like to share.
Well, obviously, you're very fortunate to have Mr. Wilford. We talked about that in our previous classes. All those things he talked about, absolutely nailed on the head. If you're not having that positive attitude as you're coming to school and being positive about things, that's on you, not anyone else. The other thing that hit home for me was hiring the best people that you can. We talked about that several times. Surround yourself with good people and good things will happen. Hope this thing was beneficial for you, and hopefully we'll get to see you guys again soon.